Is this already the craziest offseason that the 49ers have ever had? We're going to talk
Yes.
about it all next. All right. Welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. And tonight, I don't even know the name of this show yet. Some real sports, Suneil.
It's just all me. Last second, so real sports talk.
That's way too much. Way too much. How you doing tonight, my man?
Yo, I'm doing fantastic, brother. Love that, there's always something to talk about with the 49ers. Another day, another quarterback linked to the 49ers. So let's keep it going, right?
Well, we're going to talk about it all next. But first, Edgardo tapping in. Thank you so much, Edgardo. That is way too kind of you. Let me get this ready, first of all, because I'm going to need it. Said, what a better way to start off the show than with the dance. Like always, great work. Look at, we got Suneil doing the running man. I don't even have to play the clip. I'm going to play it anyways because I think this is more what you were looking for, but we'll take it, Suneil. Oh my gosh. All right, let's jump right into it, man. So first of all, let's talk about all the craziness. I'm going to send a rundown, a list of everything that's happened, just a quick recap, not only with the 49ers, but around the NFL. And then I'll just ask you what your opinions are on what has happened so far. So first of all, if you've been living under a rock, then you wouldn't know this, but Tom Brady is back with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Zero speculation. Yeah, I know, Suneil. I just broke news to you. Zero speculation, by the way, that he is coming to the 49ers, which I'm surprised by that, but we can talk about that. For the 49ers, though, DJ Jones and Laken Tomlinson are gone. DJ Jones is a Denver Bronco, around $10 million a year. Laken Tomlinson, just under $14 million a year. He is with the Jets. The biggest what the F signing so far would be Christian Kirk getting God knows how much money. It was around $18 million to play for the Jacksonville Jaguars. That is absolutely crazy. And then topping it off, Randy Gregory coming in, getting around $14 million a year, signing with the Cowboys, kind of, then leaving and signing with the Broncos, which was even crazier. The biggest dominoes so far to fall are J.C. Jackson. He is a San Diego Charger, went for much, or not Los Angeles Charger, rather. Old habits die hard for sure. Right. But J.C. Jackson, very inexpensive, I thought. I thought he would go closer to $21 million a year, much less than that. Hassan Reddick has signed a deal for, again, very inexpensive, around $15 million a year. DJ Reed, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, he signed a deal. And then the guys who are still available, the biggest names are Honey Badger, Chandler Jones, Bobby Wagner, and Miles Jack, who was cut to make room for Christian Kirk, because that makes so much sense. A lot going on, Suneil. Right. What are your thoughts just overall on free agency, whether it's 49er related or not, maybe how it relates to the 49ers, just your overall thoughts so far?
Overall thoughts is, if you're a Charger fan, you got to love what they've been doing. I mean, to bring in Khalil Mack alongside Bosa, you already got Derwin James there. To bring in a J.C. Jackson along with the Asante Samuel, who they drafted last season. Like, that team. And I mean, the Chargers have always been a team that always has a lot of talent. It's just whether or not they're going to get over the hump. Overall, man, these deals have come out and we've been seeing the money, but I don't know how much of the money we could believe. Who knows what's actually true, what's actually not, and how these deals pan out. But I like the fact that Bobby Wagner and Chandler Jones are still available. I don't know if you've been following my Twitter, but on a daily basis, I'm throwing out good vibes that Bobby Wagner and Chandler Jones ended up making it onto the 49ers. That's my dream scenario of people to be brought in. So overall, I mean, I still think it's going to be exciting. There's still a lot more excitement to go around. None of the, top name wide receivers have still come off the board. I still think there's going to be a lot of trades to be seen. And sneakily, I don't know if that's a word. A lot of good
sneakily might be.
Sneakily,
I don't know about
sneakily. Look, I don't know, man. Look, I don't like my
Hey,
English.
Listen, we can't even figure out a show name, so make up whatever words you want.
Right. But sneakily, there's a lot of good offensive linemen that are being cap casualtied from their teams. And who knows if the 49ers can make some moves and get some of those guys. So
yeah, absolutely. Gardo wants to know if Jack and I have beef. Yeah, we have
Absolutely.
real Twitter beef. That's for sure. Definitely have Twitter beef. That's what I tried to tell him at the end of our last show. I said, we should not talk on Twitter and take out all of our grievances with each other on the show. I think a lot more people would actually enjoy it. And a lot of people tune in, but I think you guys would like it a little bit more if we just got real spicy on people. So
I don't know,
yeah,
man. One time that actually happened out on live, I happened to be on the show that one time. It didn't go very well. So I think you guys should hash it on Twitter first and actually be friends on the show.
Yeah, there we go. We're frenemies. There you go. All right. Yeah. So for me, again, for just overall, and we'll talk about Charvarius Ward because that is specific to the 49ers. We'll get there in a minute. But to me, everything that's happened so far has been a little bit crazy, right? You've seen guys get overpaid. I felt like some guys got underpaid. Like I said, J.C. Jackson, Hassan Reddick. I thought they were underpaid. I thought overpaid was Randy Gregory. Certainly Christian Kirk. I don't know what's going on there. Trent Baalke is absolutely terrible. We also talked about and we thought that Laken Tomlinson and DJ Jones would be gone, that they would price themselves out. I didn't know what what DJ Jones would get. I pretty much knew that Tomlinson was between that 12 and 14 range. DJ Jones got a little bit more than what I expected, but I'm happy for both of them. They both deserve it, and it makes sense that the 49ers were not going to bring them back. We pretty much saw the writing on the wall. I think some people got hope with Laken because he had met late last week with the 49ers, showed up at the facility. There were pictures taken. They tried to work things out, and it just wasn't going to be there. So best of luck to those guys. But it just means that guys that were drafted, Javon Kinlaws, Aaron Banks, these guys have got to step up. This is the reason that you were brought here. Step up. You've got to be starters. And that's pretty much where we're at. And we're going to see if these guys are ready to take these roles because they are so important to the 49ers' success. And I'm excited to see how it plays out. But again, nothing crazy as far as losing those two. I expected it. I think you expected it as well.
I didn't expect the Laken one. I did expect the DJ Jones one just because I think the 49ers are more equipped to fill that position just with their ability and the coaching that they have around the defensive line to coach people up. Offensive line wise, I don't have that same faith. So I thought they would go all in and try to get Laken Tomlinson, but they didn't. So it's Aaron Banks season.
Yeah, it's definitely Aaron Banks season. Something that a lot of you probably didn't want to hear. Okay, before we get to the Deshaun Watson thing, because we do have to talk about it, let's talk about Charvarius Ward. So this is a kid that's 25 years old, extremely good man corner, which is a little bit interesting for me because they didn't play too much man, especially knowing that they had drafted Ambry Thomas, who was brought in to be a man corner. Now they're going to bring in Charvarius Ward, and are they going to change things? I'm not sure. But overall, what are your thoughts on the signing of Ward?
Yeah, I mean, initially, because all the rumors before they signed Ward was we're bringing Stephon Gilmore in, right? So I think people had that expectation of Stephon Gilmore, Gilly Lock, and then ended up with Charvarius Ward. So I think just the name recognition and just the excitement that people had that maybe we would get Stephon Gilmore, I think a lot of people kind of were just like, who's this, right? But when you actually do some research into what Charvarius Ward is as a player and what he did last season, I'm extremely excited about this move, Jesse. And I think he fits exactly what the 49ers need in a corner. right off the bat, he's young, right? 25 years old, going to be 26 when he plays next season. When is the last time the 49ers have actually paid a young cornerback to come onto the team? Like, these guys the 49ers are usually used to paying older guys like Richard Sherman and, Josh Norman, guys like that. So the fact that they went out, spent assets on a 25-year-old corner, I think is a good sign that the 49ers are starting to turn the corner maybe on the corners, no pun intended. The second thing is he is a guy who's elite at tackling at the cornerback position. A PFF rated him. He only missed 5% of his tackles last season. That was like the lowest out of all the corners I think they rated on PFF. And we know for the 49ers, your ability to tackle at that corner position is imperative because the way the defensive set up through that defensive line, quarterbacks are going to get the ball out of their hands very quickly, which means the 49er corners have to be able to tackle so that those receivers don't get off big plays. So the fact that he's a staunch tackler, I think, is really great. Another key thing is he didn't have very many penalties, so he doesn't get a lot of pass interference. And we know that early last season how much those pass interference from the secondary, brutalized the team. And then I just think it does a lot for this cornerback room, gives them a lot of flexibility. Mosley, somebody who's played the nickel corner early in his career. We have Ambry Thomas out there. So we got 3 guys that could play the outside that are all young and ascending. Maybe this gives us the opportunity to get Jason Verrett as a luxury type person to bring in, and somebody that we don't have to bank on, but if he is healthy, can obviously add to that rotation. Takes more pressure off of Ambry, Lenore. So I just like everything about this pickup. I think he's going to fit in seamlessly with the 49ers, and it's exciting to see them get another man corner because maybe D'Amico's starting to want to go more man-to-man coverage, which would be fun to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing that I like about it is that I think there's a real chance that Mosley, who's played very well, is going to price himself out of the 49ers here in the next, year or so whenever he's up again. And so when that happens, you've got Ward, who's a man corner, and you've got Ambry Thomas, who you drafted, who's also a man corner. So I think the future is really probably those two starting if Mosley does price himself out, which I definitely could see, and both of them being press man type corners. I think that's the future of this defense. So that's how I see things playing out. That's why I like the signing. I definitely pissed people off on Twitter with a remark that I made when they signed him. And I stand by it. He has basically, again, goes about it a completely different way. I understand that. But basically the same production as Emmanuel Mosley, but is triple the cost. People got upset at that, tried to throw out all these crazy numbers, which I refuted with numbers that showed that I was right. And my point with that is that you can look at it 2 ways. You can look at it and say, hey, Emmanuel Mosley is extremely inexpensive. I agree with that. But you can also look at it and say, well, maybe they slightly overpaid for Ward. Now, that doesn't mean that he's not a good player. It's not a good signing. Sometimes you're going to overpay for players, especially day one of free agency. But the bottom line is I think they slightly overpaid. I personally would have rather had guys like Reddick. I would have paid $2.5 million annually more for a JC Jackson. But the flip side of that is those guys have to want to come to San Francisco. And I understand those things. So, these are conversations that you can't really have in 180 characters on Twitter.
Right.
But man, people really got upset at that comment. It's like, hey, it is what it is. The production is roughly the same. Are they different players? Do they get there differently? Of course they do. Does Charvarius Ward have some skill sets that Mosley doesn't and vice versa? Absolutely. But stat for stat, they are basically at the same production. Now, the good news is Ward is not there to replace Mosley, at least not this year. Maybe he is down the line, like I just talked about. But for now, he is there to probably start opposite of Mosley. And that's a good thing. If you have 2 guys at Mosley's level, I'm taking that. That is very, very good. And Ambry Thomas can sit back. He can learn. He can be the first guy off the bench. And I have a lot of confidence in that. I'll take that over Josh Norman for sure. So overall, I am very happy about the signing. But people, come on, don't get so upset. It's just Twitter. But those are ultimately my thoughts with it. I think Ward's going to be a good addition, hell of a lot better than some of the other options they had. Now, do you think that this impacts positively or negatively the chances of bringing back Verrett? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's going to be positive because now the 49ers don't have to be desperate for Verrett. And he's going to be at best the fourth guy off the bench, if not the fifth guy with Lenore there. So them the chance to really be conservative with Verrett, really work on getting him healthy. And even if he doesn't start the season and they just kind of ease him in at the tail end of the season to kind of see if he's ready to play for the playoffs, I think it's that type of situation where you have three guys that are going to be able to hold down the fort, and then Verrett could come in kind of like he did in 2020, where he came in at the end of the season and just lit things up. If we could do that, but actually be in playoff contention, to have a guy like that just come off the bench and be able to be that playoff designated hitter type situation as far as a cornerback that you throw on the best receiver on the other side, I think that would play wonders for it. So I already think the 49ers have done a lot to gain goodwill with Verrett. So I think that Verrett and the 49ers will have mutual interest, and Verrett will, give the 49ers a little bit of leeway just because of how well they've treated him, even though he hasn't played much for the team.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you, by the way. I think that Verrett, there's a better chance that he's coming back. And I feel better about it than what I would have felt back maybe a week ago or before this signing, because Verrett being my first guy off the bench, I'm like, hold on a second. I don't know if I want to rely on
Right.
that. But if he doesn't have to be the first guy off the bench, I like that. Also, maybe Verrett, who is a smaller guy, can play nickel corner. And I think you brought this up a couple weeks ago that if we had gotten another number one corner, that maybe Mosley is the guy that can be the nickel corner. Now, Mosley can start outside, but when they go to those nickel packages, they can bring in Ambry, who can play outside, and then Mosley can kick inside. He is very versatile. So maybe there is some flexibility with this move that a lot of people aren't looking at. And that's even more reason to be excited. But the cornerback room certainly got better with this move overall for sure. Let me get to this super chat. Gardo coming in again says, should we be aggressive in the draft? Trade up multiple times for better players. Yeah, I mean, they've got, and I don't think I had it in my notes here to talk about, but let me pull up the picture because I
10
definitely
picks,
did take one.
9
Well,
once they give one to Miami. So
yeah, it's a lot of picks, but they picked up
two
hold on a
thirds,
second.
2 sixths, and a seventh, I think.
Yeah,
So
okay. So comp picks 102, 105, which are third rounders, 220 and 221, which are sixth rounders, and 262, which is a seventh rounder. So a lot of capital that they gained. Now, if they can still trade Jimmy for something, maybe they trade Dre Greenlaw for something, there are even more picks that could possibly come in. So for me, I think that they definitely can be aggressive, especially once it hits mid second round. They really can start owning the board and figuring out exactly what it is they want and make those moves to go out and get certain players. Now, I know that I see this here, trade up, draft Christian Watson. Usually, Jacob, and I hate to burst the bubble, but usually they trade up and draft guys that we never expected or haven't even talked about. But
right.
maybe it is for Christian Watson. You never know. And Christian Watson, I'm definitely warming up to the idea of getting somebody like that. Still, I would probably go a different direction, but I'm not going to hate it by any means if that's the route that they decide to take. I appreciate both of you for tapping in, dropping some super chats. So here you go. All right, let's talk about this because this one is pretty big. Deshaun Watson, it came out very, very early that Deshaun Watson was meeting with the 49ers, right? And immediately it was met with pushback from Mayoko, who I trust, and a couple other big name guys saying, absolutely not. Deshaun Watson and the 49ers are not meeting with each other. Okay, makes sense. Nothing's really been reported saying that they are. I get it. They're probably not meeting. But then there was a local reporter who came out and said, pump the brakes. The 49ers and Deshaun Watson absolutely have mutual interest. Now, he's not saying that they're meeting, but the interest is there regardless of what you're hearing. So, although reports came out saying, hey, they're not meeting, that is different than having interest. So, I want to make sure that that is clear. And I was able to talk to this gentleman on Twitter Spaces, and I posted the video. If you haven't seen it, go watch that there. Very interesting. I asked him, do you stand behind these reports? Because a lot of people came out last year and said Mac Jones was the pick, and they were burned. We're talking to some big name guys. Were you hesitant at all about reporting this? He says, absolutely not. I 100% stand on it. I appreciate that some people are not going to buy into it. That's fine. I'm not here to sell anybody, but am I confident in the report? Yes, 100%. So, with that being said, it's most likely not going to happen, right? We do know that he's meeting with Cleveland, Carolina, New Orleans, and possibly the Falcons. That we do know. The 49ers are not in there. But what are your thoughts overall on Deshaun Watson? You can take it multiple different ways. You can say, hey, if I was the 49ers, I would do this, or just talk about the rumor in general. What are your thoughts?
Well, look, duh is my answer. Like the 49ers trade package that they ended up giving to get Trey Lance. It's no secret that was all earmarked to go get Deshaun Watson before all of his off the field stuff happened. So this news that there's mutual interest, there's always been mutual interest. Deshaun Watson to play for the 49ers, 49ers to have Deshaun Watson. Do I believe this report that there's mutual interest? Absolutely. Who isn't interested in Deshaun Watson, right? And look, I think people forget, even when the 49ers already had traded, the 2 first rounders to move up to number 3, already in their mind had that they were going to use their top 3 first round picks to go get Trey Lance. That same couple hours before, what were they doing, Jesse? Calling Green Bay to find out if Aaron Rodgers was available. The 49ers do their due diligence. If there was a report that came out that the 49ers called Houston just to see if there's any interest in anything that they have that Houston would be interested in trading Deshaun Watson for, I would believe that too. I'm pretty sure they did exactly what Green Bay did and said, hello, Lynch, and hung it up because they're like, there's nothing you got for us that's anywhere close to what these other teams are doing. But are the 49ers interested in Deshaun Watson? Absolutely, man. And if they could get him, they would trade for him. But reality is they have nothing that Houston is going to want in the sense competitive to what Carolina, the Falcons, and New Orleans are willing to give, because they don't have the first round picks. And I doubt that they have the caliber of players that would set them apart from what these other teams are willing to give up. So I just don't think that it's good. It's realistic, but I do agree that there was interest, and I'm pretty sure the 49ers did call to at least even see, hey, how close are we kind of conversation.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I agree with you. I imagine that's exactly how it went, if at all. And, I appreciate that this guy was firm in what he reported. I respect it. He obviously heard something from somebody that he trusts, and he ran with it. And so I got to give him credit for that. But I agree. I think if a conversation was had, it was very short lived. The 49ers don't have anything. It would probably realistically have to be a Trey Lance and a Nick Bosa. You don't have the first round capital. And are the 49ers willing to give that up? I think the answer is a resounding no. Once you hear Bosa is a part of that deal, Trey Lance, for as great as we think he's going to be, right? Some of us think he's going to be great. Some of us don't. Obviously, we do. But for as great as we think he's going to be, he holds no value compared to what the 49ers traded to go get him. He hasn't proven that yet. So, yes, he would probably be the first round pick in this year's draft. But to a team that already has Davis Mills and is probably at least comfortable with that for now, to expect that they would say, hey, yeah, let's just do a Lance for Watson deal and call it a day, throw in a fourth, that's not the way that that's going to work. They're going to want much, much more. They have too many holes on that team to fill, and it's just what it is. So, yes, do I believe there was some legs to it? Sure. Do I think it was short lived? Absolutely. Is Trey Lance going to be the quarterback? 100%. So, a lot of people want to know about Jimmy. We will get to that. But first, let me bring this up. Innovative Energy says bad start to free agency. Only Wagner basically will save it. Come on, Kyle Shanahan. What are your thoughts on this, Suneil? Would you want Bobby Wagner?
I told you my dream scenario. It's out in the atmosphere. Good juju, good vibes. Chandler Jones 1, Bobby Wagner 2. Bring them to the team. You don't have to sign anybody else. Just sign all people that we don't know. You get those 2 guys onto this squad, I'm with it.
People hate this, but I think Wagner is really going to play for the Rams. I know it sucks, but I think that they've lost a lot of pieces. They definitely are freeing up money by extending Donald and extending Matthew Stafford. There's a lot of money that they're about to free up. They're going to have some wiggle room, not to mention Todd Gurley's money. Yes, Todd Gurley, I believe that money is finally off the cap. So they're going to have some room to wiggle a little bit. And I do expect that Wagner, who is an LA guy, ends up possibly with the Rams. That kind of sucks. But he's not the best in coverage, and Jimmy G isn't there to throw it straight over the middle to him. So not too mad at that. Let me give you some love real quick, and then we'll move on to the next topic. I don't know if the mic's picking up on it, and I doubt that it is, but it is dumping outside. So you guys might hear some thunder. Hopefully we keep good connection here. But this is Florida weather. Sometimes you get some craziness. So apologize if it's taking over the mic and the sound a little bit. But it is what it is. All right. So D Ford also got restructured. So this one was interesting to me because D Ford is probably not in the long-term plans. I don't know how he can be at this point. This man is never healthy. I talked about how the 49ers can free up a lot of money. I expected for them to get under the cap, and maybe they still do this, being that they have to be under the cap here in just over 12 hours. Unless they trade Jimmy, they're going to have to move some money around. So I expect Armstead to get restructured. I expect Ward, Jimmy Ward, that is. We have 2 of them now in the secondary.
Mm-hmm.
I expect him to get restructured, not restructured, but extended. That'll free up around $16 million. So I expect those things to happen or something similar to that. I did not see this D Ford one coming. Caught me a bit by surprise. What are your thoughts on D Ford being restructured?
Yeah, I mean, it saves what, 4 million or something like that, 4.5 million, something like that. I think I think a lot of teams are starting to utilize future cap in 2023, 2024 as a tool to be able to move forward. And I think this is just the 49ers doing that. Using the cap that they think is going to go up exponentially with the new TV deal in 2023, 2024, and fit in some of the dead cap space there, because the dead cap on the salary cap this year is much more impactful than the dead cap next year. So I think it was just a tool like that. I don't really believe D4 is going to have any type of meaningful impact play-wise on this team. I mean, we thought he was going to be able to play some last season. Obviously, that didn't come to fruition very long. I don't think it's going to be any different this season, but I'm cool with it. I think they're trying to get money wherever they can. And we saw Green Bay do it with the Aaron Rodgers deal. I think they're just like, let's try to save as much money right now as possible, and then we'll worry about next year when the cap number moves up.
Yeah, I think a lot of people thought I didn't understand how restructures work because I questioned this one. I definitely know how they work. My question with this is why, right? I understand that you're trying to free up money now, but you have other avenues to do that. Okay. Mainly, why the hell is Jimmy still on this roster? That's one. 2, the other 2 moves that I just talked about easily get you to where you need to be. So kicking the can down the road on a D Ford, which I get, saves you $4.5 million this year. maybe that is more important than the money next year, but you are still going to have to pay that money, and you're going to have to do that next year for a guy that, whether he retires or not, you owe that to him. So, yes, the salary cap is supposed to go up a ton, but you are still paying this man and you are doing it next year. For me, I'm not a fan of kicking the can down the road and paying guys that I know are not going to be contributors, probably not even going to be a part of this team next year. And we're going to have to pay that money. It's just not something I'm a big fan of. Yes, the money goes way up, but I also know that the contracts for Bosa, Deebo most likely kick in next year. Obviously, Armstead's money is way up. So is Williams. His money goes way up. So they're going to need this money to play around with. Every dollar will count, even going forward. So I wasn't a big fan of it. I do understand it. It was just kind of a weird one to me. It came out of left field. Now, if it's something like what they did with Richburg, where they restructured and then basically he retired, understandable. I get that. But this doesn't seem to be the case here with that one. If they had just waited till June, they could have saved $2.5 million. Yes, that is less than 4.5, but they're not pushing as much money down the road. So for me, wasn't the biggest fan of it, but I understand the reasoning for it. It is a little bit different when you are running the front office. Totally understand that.
Jesse, I do want to say one thing
Yeah.
before we move on. I do think the 49ers are going to make a big splash this offseason. It just sounds like they're trying to get a lot more money than they technically need if they're just going to bring back their own players or like deal type free agents. I do think a guy like Chandler Jones caliber type player is coming to the team, which is why you're seeing these type of just an extra $2 million here, extra $1 million here. I believe that they're going to extend or restructure Armstead, Jimmy Ward, Ebicom, and Emmanuel Mosley. I think they give him a long-term deal as well to try to get more money. Plus, Jimmy's coming off the books as well. I think they're going to have quite a bit of money to play, and they just saw the Rams, what they did as far as the type of talent they brought in. They saw what Arizona did, the type of talent they brought in. I think the 49ers are ready to play that type of game and maximize, not having to pay a quarterback as much as these other teams are paying a quarterback.
Yeah, and maybe that's a possibility. Also, maybe they're looking forward and saying, oh gosh, and we'll talk about this in a second, but we might have to cut Jimmy, which means we're going to have to eat $7.5 million right away. Now, we will get that money back once he signs with another team, and he most inevitably will. But if that's a possibility, oh my gosh, like we're going to need this money. So I can understand it. Let me wait to see what happens from this before I make a full judgment. But right off the bat, I was like, not a big fan of it. Not my favorite thing. But maybe you're right. The problem is, though, is that unless these guys are willing to take a lot less money, they kind of made their big splash with Ward. Now, we don't have the details of the deal. I know J.C. Jackson signed. His deal was a big deal, but only $8 million is actually due this year. I don't know what they're doing with Ward or how they're working that in or what they could do with a future signing like you're talking about. Chandler Jones, Bobby Wagner, but they really don't have much more left in the bag to make these moves. You can only move around so much money, and at max, it's around 33 million that they can free up through that. Obviously, another 25 or so with Jimmy, but you're already over the cap around 16, so that eats up a lot. You've got about 7 million that's allocated to your rookies. You just signed Ward already, plus you've got to fill out the rest of the roster. There isn't really a lot of wiggle room. Even if they free up a mill here, a mill there, it's going to be tough to get a big name guy. And one of those guys could come, but they're going to have to play ball a little bit and maybe take a little bit less money. And, if these guys want to win, we're here. San Francisco, baby, for sure. Yeah. So Gray Fox says death, taxes, D Ford contract restructure. Very true. Very, very true. Marco says, love the Ward signing. We desperately needed a cornerback starter, okay? Plus, our pass rush might unlock a breakout year from him. That's a very, very good point. Solid signing, needed it. So there we go. I think most of the chat does like the signing. And again, I think we both do, for different reasons, came to different conclusions. But I think that we both ultimately do like the signing as well. Let me show both y'all love. Appreciate the donations. All right, let's get into the meat and potatoes of what we're here to talk about. Why is this man still on the 49ers? And have they overplayed their hand when it came to trading Jimmy G? Now, we don't know how true this is, but it was reported that a second round pick was on the table for Jimmy at some point. Why they didn't pull the trigger, if that was there, I'm not sure. What is going on here? What do you ultimately think the outcome is? And have they overplayed their hand?
I mean, look, wasn't it 2020 offseason that they had allegedly a first round pick from New England for Jimmy Garoppolo? So if that's true, then it doesn't seem like they're going to get anywhere close to that. Did they overplay their hand? As of now, it looks like yes, but I do want to put a little asterisk by that because they do have till 1 o'clock to actually make a decision, and until then, we won't know. I do think that there is this last, I guess, joker or this last like ace up the sleeve, which is the Deshaun Watson, domino that needs to fall. If Deshaun Watson ends up going to the Atlanta Falcons, I think that bodes really, really well for the 49ers because now there's still 3 teams that are in need of a starting caliber quarterback that don't want to go into the rookie class and have that be their starter. So, right now, Carolina, New Orleans are the guys that have really been making a push. Atlanta just came into the fray. Deshaun Watson is from Atlanta. Atlanta has a guy like Matt Ryan that they could send Houston's way that could be a bridge quarterback, which I think is more appealing than the quarterbacks that definitely Carolina has. And I don't even know if New Orleans has a quarterback right now. But yeah, so I think that depending on what Deshaun ends up going, where he ends up going, if he goes to Atlanta, I still think the 49ers can pull something out as far as getting assets and maybe even pull out a second round because they're going to have teams that are already talking big packages. And maybe they're just like, okay, well, we were willing to give up, multiple first round picks. We didn't get this guy. We need somebody. We'll give multiple second round picks for that guy. Right. So that's the only thing, but that's a lot of ifs. And if you're waiting for all of these ifs to go through, more than likely, you probably aren't operating from a power of strength, which means you overplayed your hand. So I would say, yeah, man, they are overplaying their hand, but maybe Deshaun saves them in the long run.
Do you think that the Deshaun domino has to fall before we hear anything?
I think so because who else is out there, right? There's still Mariota out there, who's another name that people are talking about. Jameis, but we're talking about 3 teams, right? New Orleans, Carolina, and Indy that are all 3 looking for veteran quarterbacks. And there's not that many veterans out there, right? So all of the same hesitations you might have with Jameis, you're going to have with Jimmy, right? Because they're both coming off of injuries. They're both coming off of, surgeries. But Jimmy at least has taken team much farther than Jameis has. So you would think maybe Jimmy gets the edge there. Mariota hasn't played as a starter, in quite some time. So still looks like Jimmy can be more appealing than these other options. It's just maybe the 49ers have to throw in an asset as well so that somebody could take that whole contract, because I think they're more looking for that whole contract to come off the books than necessarily, this high draft pick that they're going to get for him.
All right, that's fair. Real quick, there's 227 of you watching through the various platforms. First of all, if you are not watching on YouTube, come over to YouTube, hit the like and subscribe, hit the bell notification as well so you never miss an episode. Helps all the algorithms. Also, in the description of the video, you've got the link to So Real Sports Talk, which is Suneil's channel. Go ahead and show him some love if you have not done so already.
Jesse, I just eclipsed 750.
Did you really?
We just eclipsed 750.
Hell yeah.
We're looking to get to 1,000 before the season starts. So
easy.
Please, guys, if you haven't, please go subscribe. It helps with the algorithm. It helps me get closer to that monetization. and there's some great content on there. I've been bringing on some new faces and things of that nature. So definitely come help me out, man. I'd really appreciate that.
For sure. And we're gonna, the channel is still going, or excuse me, the show's still going. We're gonna talk for a few more minutes, but I want to throw this out there as well. We eclipsed 4,000. We do owe you a giveaway. We're figuring out how to do that. We'll get it out in the next week or so. But also, we're very close to 5,000 already. So keep pushing those numbers up. Would definitely appreciate that. But let's get back to this real quick because, it's interesting. The Watson thing should not, by any means, impact Jimmy G. And the reason that I say that is because it should be different teams, right? Teams that are going for Watson are willing to spend big and get better in the quarterback room versus teams that are going for Jimmy are trying to probably save their job and maybe win now. But it seems like somehow these wires have been crossed a little bit. The way that I saw it was, all right, well, if New Orleans doesn't get Watson, then they're just going to go ahead and re-sign Jameis, right? If the Panthers don't get Watson, then they're just going to go ahead and roll with Darnold. So that was kind of my initial thinking, but it does seem like all of a sudden, because they have waited so long, and by the way, I did tell you that Pittsburgh, not just you, Suneil, but everybody, that Pittsburgh is a smart franchise. They are probably going to sign Trubisky, who is going to be much less. Check. And you don't have to give up any assets. He can be your bridge guy and you can still draft someone. That's exactly what happened. So the fact that Trubisky is a Steeler, no shock there. Sounds like they kicked the tires on Jimmy. The asking price was too much. They were out. Sounds like Washington would have gone the Jimmy route, but either the asking price was too much or Jimmy was unwilling to go. They traded for Wentz. And now Indy is the one team that is the most obvious and sitting there. But now they've started to kick the tires on possibly a Watson, which is not going to happen. It's in division. Okay, cool. Well, we'll go ahead and go over to Mariota. So I think all of the leverage that the 49ers had this time last week, playing the Steelers and Washington against each other, and then it turned into the Colts and the Steelers against each other, I think all of that is gone. At this point, they've got to figure it out. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe, to your point, Suneil, they do get a couple second-round picks. At this point, I believe you've got to just take whatever you've got and run, because I think they've overplayed their hand. If a second-round pick was on the table, there is no way that is currently on the table. And even if you do end up getting that same pick in a week or two, what is the cost? What did you cost yourself? How much time in free agency did you cost yourself? How many players did you potentially miss out on that you wanted to get, all because you wanted to hold on to Jimmy G and try to get more? At this point, I don't want them to cut him. I want them to get something. I think that they would be embarrassed if that's what it came down to, and I would love for them to answer those questions. But at the same time, I think that money is so important that if they don't get it off the books and do it soon, it's just becoming too much. They've got to figure out a way to get it gone, period. So hopefully they're not waiting on Deshaun Watson, because Deshaun Watson could be another week or 2 or 3. They are in no rush over there. Like, as long as they get that deal done by the draft, they're good to go. They've got plenty of time to figure out that deal. So to hold on to Jimmy for that long and figure everything else out, very, very frustrating to me, who thinks that he should have been gone yesterday. And by yesterday, I mean before last season started. So TC Legends tapping in. Thank you so much. Says, seems like most of the chat wants to trade up for Watson too. Whatever is best for you guys and Trey. So obviously not a 49er fan. I think that Jimmy is going to the Colts tomorrow. All right, that's fair. Also, Rich Eisen hit the nail on the head. I don't know what Rich Eisen said. Do you know what Rich Eisen said?
Nah, I must have missed that one. It is nice to see Rich Eisen really be into the 49ers, though. He's done a lot of pieces on the 49ers. Seems high on Trey. Not sure what he hit on the nail on the head. So hopefully TC Legends, you can follow up so we can know kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah, very curious to see what you mean by that. I want to know what he said, but he has kind of been a ride or die for the 49ers the last few months, and I definitely enjoy that. I've always really enjoyed Rich Eisen, and again, I don't have a lot of time to watch other people or take in their content if they're not directly related to the 49ers. I try to give and show love to everybody locally, but the big wig guys, I don't watch these guys anymore unless I see a clip across Twitter. If I think it's really good, I'll try to share it here on the channel or what have you. But for the most part, I don't hear and see those things. So curious to see what he said. I'm sure it was all good things, though, when it comes to the 49ers. Let me show you some love here.
Oh, you got
should have played it twice for him because it was $10. Jeez, let's see if he was able to throw up exactly what it was. Trade up for Watson, meaning Christian Watson. Yeah, I got that. He said the Niners love Lance. Yeah, I mean, I think they do as well. Here's my gut feeling on this. I think that Shanahan is probably cool with just figuring it out. Hey, let's get Jimmy out of here. I'm ready to move on to Lance. I think that locker room politics played a big deal in why Lance was not playing earlier. And I think that Shanahan's probably ready to move on. But John Lynch's job is to try to get the most out of a Jimmy G trade. So I understand him slow playing it to a certain extent. But at the same time, you've got to just wash your hands of it, right? Trey Lance is training this offseason. By all intents and purposes, he will be the quarterback going forward. Let's just be done. Let's just move on with it. All right. Now, we've talked about this in the past, and we've been wrong. But gut feeling, when does Jimmy get moved, Suneil?
1 o'clock tomorrow. By 1 o'clock tomorrow.
1 o'clock tomorrow. You think it's a done deal? I don't think it's going to happen. I just, at this point, like, until it happens, I can't believe it, man. I don't know. I don't know.
I think he's either traded or cut by the time they need to get underneath the cap.
Okay. I mean, I'll say this. Here's what's voting in their favor of this happening, or your favor, rather, of this happening. They haven't done any of those other restructures we talked about. Now, could they do them late tonight, early tomorrow? Sure, they can. But the fact they haven't done it kind of does tell you that they know something, right? That Jimmy's going to be moved. And I hope that that's the case. But man, I can't. I thought it was going to happen many times at this point. So I'm out on making predictions. I'm just going to leave you on a limb to dry by yourself, Suneil, to put it out there, because I've already been wrong 3 times. So I'm not doing it again. I just don't think it's going to happen tomorrow. That's the only prediction I can give for sure. Philip says Watson doesn't belong on a 49er team. And I'm assuming he's talking about Deshaun. This is the other part, right? And again, it's not going to happen. But if it did, there is some backlash, right? Watson, regardless of what happened through the legality system, there is another jury that's at hand, and that is those of us in the public opinion. We all have thoughts on it. Maybe your thought is 22 women is an awful lot for there not to be something. And if that's the case, you're not going to want a Deshaun Watson on this team. It is hard to root for somebody like that. Ben Roethlisberger was acquitted, and people still, use wordplay on his name in not so nice ways. So, Watson, certainly everybody has their opinion on it. For me, again, the whole situation was unfortunate. I don't know what happened. I'm not going to pretend to know what happened. But I do know that it was an unfortunate situation, whether it was his name being dragged through the mud, not needing to be, if nothing happened, or something happening to those, poor females. Either way, it's a sad scenario, but hopefully we get answers. And I agree with you. I think there are still situations that have to be worked through, and I don't want that to be on a 49er team. If you're just asking me, would I trade for Deshaun Watson if I had the opportunity and forego Lance? I wouldn't. I really think Lance is going to be that special. I want to see this play out, and I'm excited to see what happens as far as that goes. So is there any update on Azeez Al-Shaair? I haven't heard anything. Have you heard anything as far as Aziz and what's going on with his tender?
I haven't, but I think the signing of Oren kind of bodes well that Aziz is probably going to be brought back, and Dre Greenlaw's probably going to be traded.
Yeah, that's true. We didn't even talk about that. That was more of a special team signing, a depth piece signing. Sounds like he's a really, really good special teamer. A little odd coming from the Packers, who were the only one of the few teams that had a worse special teams than the 49ers.
Right.
But I hear he's a good special teamer. I don't know much else about him.
Can I
5
tell you?
million
Can I
is a
tell you
lot.
something else that
Yeah.
might get you a little bit excited?
Yeah. What's that?
All right. So this guy was a third round draft pick, 18 picks after Fred Warner.
Okay.
Much like Fred Warner, played safety and then switched to linebacker. Ran a 4.59 40.
Okay.
So he's really, really athletic and hasn't been coached by this linebacking team that has developed guys like a Dre Greenlaw, like an Aziz Al-Shaair. So you're talking about a guy who was pretty much comp to Fred Warner as far as known for his coverage skills and being a very, very high caliber athlete, has done well in special teams. But who knows if with D'Amico Ryans and, this coaching staff, he could be somebody who in the future can be one of those guys like Al-Shaair was this year. Maybe in a couple years, maybe, we're talking about Oren as somebody who makes one of these other linebackers expendable.
Whoa. Somebody that's great, Suneil, but bigger news has just happened. No, I'm just kidding. No, that is actually exciting. I love that. I did not know that about him. And you're right. This linebacking coaches, obviously having D'Amico Ryans, this is probably the best place for him. But yes, I want to throw this out because we did not talk about Cleveland, which is a real possibility. Obviously, Deshaun Watson is meeting with them, but if he doesn't choose them, they probably want to move on from Baker, and Jimmy would make a lot of sense for that team, right? So that is somebody that we did not consider.
Somebody I brought that up years ago.
You did, but not today. Not today. We haven't considered. Just to be clear, we have talked about it, but not today, and we should have. But somebody in the chat brought up that Mayfield just posted a farewell to Cleveland. It's true. I can read it real quick. It's pretty short.
Last Second Sports, giving the knowledge to the last second, exclusive.
Says Cleveland, the past 4 years have been nothing short of truly life-changing since I heard my name called in the draft to go to Cleveland. Cap. This is not a message with hidden meaning. This is strictly to thank the city of Cleveland for embracing my family and me. We have made many memories and shared growing in this process through all the ups and downs. I have no clue what happens next. Okay. Which is the meaning behind the silence I have had, meaning behind the silence I've had during this situation of the process. I can only control what I can, which is trusting in God's plan throughout the process. I have given this franchise everything that I have. That is something I've always done at every stage and at every level. And that will not change wherever I take my next snap, whatever happens. I just want to say thank you to the fans who truly embraced who I am and the mentality that aligned so well with this city's hardworking people. Cleveland will always be a part of Emily and my story, and we will always be thankful for the impact it has had and will have in our lives. Sincerely, Baker Reagan Mayfield. I didn't know his middle name was Reagan. What are your thoughts on that?
The boy is cracking under pressure right now. And and he's feeling it. I think he's maybe seeing some writing on the wall. Bodes well for my by 1 o'clock Eastern tomorrow. Jimmy's gonna be another landing spot for Jimmy Garoppolo, right? So this could be much ado about nothing. Could be that obviously the Browns took a meeting with Deshaun. That means that they're not sold on Baker. This could be just Baker responding to that, right?
Yeah, that's fair. Baker's funny because I think Baker tries to come across like he has all this swag and all this confidence, but Baker's always responding to every little thing.
Yeah,
And this started back when Colin Cowherd called him out and they had their little back and forth. He's always been the same guy emotionally. Now, that emotion is what makes him play really hard and be good at times. But that emotion is also why Cleveland probably wants to move on from this guy. He cannot be the face of your franchise. He is way too emotional, way too erratic. And I understand why Cleveland would want to move on. Take Jimmy. All we will give you Jimmy. Happily take Jimmy. Hopefully they know by tomorrow that they are out on the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes and they can take Jimmy G for sure. Adrian, I missed this comment. He said, told y'all Jimmy was going to get cut. Not so fast, my friend. We just talked about a couple destinations. You never know, but here's some love anyways. I appreciate you, Adrian. All right, y'all. 291 strong watching. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you never miss an episode. Give Suneil some love. It is in the description, the link to his channel. Go give him some love. He's chasing 1,000 subscribers. We are chasing 5,000 here at Last Second Sports. Thank you all so much for tapping in, as always. And until next time, peace.
One more came through, Jesse. I don't know if you want to put it up.
Oh. Did it end? Are we good?
Yeah.
Oh, I hit the button, but it didn't quite end. Hold on. Hold up. I don't see it.
Skip Bayless about to say OBJ is.
Say OBJ is what got Baker traded. Yeah, maybe. All right, Adrian. I appreciate y'all. Y'all have a great night. Peace.